Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at the British Royal Armouries taking a look at some of the machine pistols in their extensive reference collection. Today, we have the Beretta Model 93R, and that R is for Raffica, which is technically translated into burst, although it has perhaps a little more vague definition in Italian of like gust. At any rate, it is Beretta's select fire machine pistol version of the Beretta Model 92. It was developed in the late 1970s, mid-1970s, by a Beretta engineer by the name of Paolo Parola, who actually put a substantial amount of time and work and effort coming up with a way to include an effective, reliable burst mechanism that still fit within the confines of the Beretta 92 frame and slide assembly. Now, this was originally developed for Italian special forces. It has seen relatively widespread interest among police SWAT teams as well as military special forces. Probably, honestly, more the police and civilian security side than the military side. Machine pistols are a little bit sketchy for military use. They have more application, still limited, but more application in the civilian policing world. So, in addition to, well, there are three major elements to the Beretta 93. One of them is the selector switch, which allows you to choose between either semi-automatic or 3-round burst fire. Notable that there is no like open fully automatic. You're always limited to 3 rounds, which makes a lot of sense on a machine pistol. Second element is the vertical front grip here, and the third element, of course, is the detachable stock. So let's dive in and let's take a close look at all three, in particular, how that burst mechanism works. All right, there's the whole thing. The stock does fold. However, it does not fold in any sort of storable way because, well, if you have a magazine in the gun, that's the best you're going to get with the folding stock. I think this is really folding for when you're storing the stock somewhere else or carrying it on your person. If you're going to attach the stock, the presumption is you're going to be shooting with it and you need it extended. Now this attaches to the gun with 2 lugs, well 3 lugs. We have this through pin, this locking pin, and this retracting lug on the stock. We have this lug here replacing the lanyard loop of the regular pistol. We then have a hole cut here for that lug, and then a slot in the back of the frame that this lobe fits into. So I just slide that in there. That holds it pretty much in position, and then I can just push that into place, and a spring catch here holds it pretty solidly in. The butt plate on that is narrow, slick, thin. It's not a great shoulder stock, but it's decent for the size and compactness that it offers. Next up, we have a front grip in the gun, which does fold up. That folding feature is so that you can actually still put the pistol in a holster without having some really weird appendage in the holster. But in order to use it, you fold the grip down, and then you actually stick your thumb through the front of the trigger guard and hold on to the front grip. This helps to ensure that you don't accidentally slip and bring your hand up in front of the muzzle, which would be very bad. Quick interlude here to point out a characteristic of this stock that it does not give you a cheek weld. You can kind of rest your chin actually on top of that stock, but you don't get a cheek weld. This is to support the back end of the pistol and allow you to hold it in position on the shoulder. Note that the trigger guard on the 93R is deliberately extended from that of the regular Beretta 92 so that you have room for your thumb. Also, by the way, it's worth pointing out that this was not Beretta's first machine pistol. Directly preceding this, they actually had the Model 951A, which was a full auto version of the Beretta 950, the single stack equivalent, really single stack predecessor to the Beretta 92. And apparently they did sell a batch of those full auto 951s to Pakistan, as well as selling a few of them in Italy. And then the potential interest in that probably is what led to development of this variation. The 93 slide is the same length as the 92. The barrel's the same with the addition of a compensator on the end of it. Those compensator slots are also going to help control recoil and control muzzle rise a bit. That then brings us to the controls. we have separated control levers here. So the back button is a safety lever. As long as the gun's cocked, you have fire with the red dot available or visible. Push that down, you're in the safe position. That's going to lock out the trigger. And then we have the front lever is your selector. So 3 dots is 3-round burst, and you can flip that up to semi-auto with 1 dot. This is completely different from the standard 92, which had a slide-mounted safety and or decocker, depending on the model. In order to make a bit better use of the burst fire mode, the magazines for the 92R were extended. These guys get 20-round magazines with this sort of extension cover to fit the bit that's sticking out of the bottom of the grip. And we can go ahead and disassemble this just like a standard Beretta. Push that in, drop the locking latch. We can pull the slide off. Not really a whole lot to show you up here. This is standard Beretta 92. The burst mechanism is located underneath the right grip panel. Pull that off. And that's a whole lot of extra parts you don't have on a regular 92. All right, we'll put the slide on to properly demonstrate this for you. Each time the slide cycles, it's going to use this tooth to push this bar, connecting bar down 1 notch. Essentially what will happen is it'll push this down 1 notch, at which point this hammer will hook into the bottom teeth. This one will release and reset up. It's kind of actually, you could think of this as like an AK fire control mechanism, catching and releasing the hammer on a front and a rear sear, or front and rear hook. Anyway, we'll pull the trigger here. So there's our first shot. This hook is engaged. The slide's going to cycle. You see it has pushed that connecting bar down. And then this hook holds the bar in place. This one is now popped up to the 2nd notch. We cycle again. It's pushed the bar down again. The bottom hook has holds the bar in place. The top hook has now slid above the last tooth. Our 3rd shot, this goes all the way down, and that is now far enough to disconnect the trigger, and so the hammer remains back. When I release the trigger, I'm letting this bar drop backward. It's going to disconnect. This one's a little sticky, but it's going to reset like that, ready to do the same thing again. Now, the other element of this system is, let's say I just fire 1 round. First round has fired, but before we go all the way into battery, I release the trigger. So when I do that, this connecting bar resets itself. So if you don't fire a full burst, the mechanism still resets itself each time. The best example of this not happening is the early M16s, where the 3-round burst, if you only fired 2, the next time you pulled the trigger in burst mode, you would get a single shot. This, the Beretta 93 system, is a fully resetting burst mechanism, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, I don't have an opportunity to do any shooting with this particular one on this trip, so I don't have any shooting footage for you. However, I will at some point. In the meantime, if you're interested in seeing some shooting footage of this, I highly recommend James Reeves' video for TFBTV, where he actually visits Beretta, speaks a bit with Parola, the designer, and does a bunch of shooting with it. James makes it look like a very easy and controllable gun. Now, Parola's work makes it, among machine pistols, a particularly easy and controllable gun, but James's shooting is excellent. It's, I think, particularly relevant to note that the rate of fire on the 93 is actually relatively low. It's something about 700 rounds per minute. You'll often see the numbers listed much higher, like 1,100, 1,200 rounds a minute, and I think that's generally just made as an assumption because most machine pistols are ludicrously fast shooting. But to reference the TFBTV video again, if you go watch and listen to that shooting, it's clearly not that fast. It's about 700 rounds per minute. So a surprisingly controllable gun, not nearly as critically useless as most machine pistols, which is really quite a coup. Well done by Parola and Beretta on this. And they remain classically iconic guns, both for being Beretta guns, very high quality, very effective, but also for their use in pop culture. Most substantially, this is the base for the Auto 9 that was used in RoboCop, and then used actually in a bunch of other movies beyond that as well. So that certainly if anything, cemented its pop culture recognition and status. Anyway, big thanks to the British Royal Armouries for giving me access to this one to film for you. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.